Hello and welcome to this edition of Tour Confidential on Golf.com. I'm Jessica Marksbury, joined today in our New York City studio by Golf Magazine's Alan Bastable and Golf Magazine contributor Josh Sens via Skype. Rickie Fowler won the biggest event of his career at the Players' Championship over the weekend, but throughout the telecast and on social media, it seemed like all anyone could talk about was the fact that Rickie was singled out as one of the most overrated players on tour in Sports Illustrated's anonymous poll. Now, Josh, it seems like really Rickie's more of an underachiever than an overrated player. What are your thoughts?
Well, what's that line from Spider-Man? With great sponsorship deals come great responsibility. I mean, the guy is so popular with fans and receives so much media attention in part because of his Q rating that it was hard for him to live up to that. But, there was no way he was really underachieving on the course when you think about how close he came to winning majors last year. He was, a Martin Keimer runaway away from winning the U.S. Open. If not for Rory last year, he might have had 2 majors himself. So I'm not sure we can say that he was underachieving, and now we know that he wasn't, or he hasn't. He's no longer is.
Alan, it's true. It's certainly not the case now. And to say he's an underachiever isn't necessarily a knock against him. It's really an acknowledgement of the great talent that he has and the surprise that until yesterday, he only had 1 PGA Tour title to his name.
Yeah, I think if there's a takeaway from this week, Sports Illustrated needs to do more polling. Because we've gotten any more publicity. It's amazing how much of part of the narrative that poll became. It was a bit overkill, I think, but obviously the media latched onto it, and that was sort of the storyline. Rickie, he was such a good amateur player. When you look at his career at Oklahoma State, as a Walker Cupper, he was 7-1. You forget his first start on tour, he tied for 7th, and then the very next week, he was in a playoff out at Greyhawk at Scottsdale. So he just came out firing. So at that point, it was like, unless this guy wins in bunches, people are going to say he's an underachiever, he's overrated, whatever. He's obviously righted the ship now with two wins on pretty stout courses. I mean, this wasn't the John Deere Classic. These are two really big wins. He's only 26. Let's not forget that. This guy is still very, very young, has a lot of time to figure out how to win more, and you got to expect that he will.
And Rickie is he's deserving of all the attention. He's a flashy player. He dresses well. He has a great media persona, a fan favorite. Josh, do you think that with this win in the Players' Championship, this could be the catalyst that moves him forward into the rest of the major season and possibly a major could be in his future?
Yeah, you have to think so. I mean, so much of golf and winning a major is getting your timing right. I mean, you can play great and then just have one guy get scorching hot and nip you. So it's a reminder of how small the margin can be between winning a major and not winning a major, between victory and being an also-ran. Look at Sergio Garcia, how many close calls he's had. 2 inches one way or the other, he's got a couple majors, and we're not talking about him as the most overrated player of all time, as people often mention. It's hard to predict what's going to happen. You have to think Rickie's going to be in it for the rest of the season.
And you had to love how he finished yesterday. That was the most impressive thing. It wasn't like, a couple birdies late. To go 6 under over the last 6 holes and then do what he did in the playoff. I think this was the Fowler we expected when he came up, this sort of aggressive, fearless player. We've seen that from him a little bit in the Ryder Cup. He's not afraid of the big moment, big putts, and he really demonstrated that yesterday. So if he can continue to play with that sort of firepower, he's obviously going to be dangerous.
And of course, every tour win is a big deal, but the 2 that he has now under his belt, Quail Hollow and now the Players' Championship, pretty impressive.
Yeah, these are big stages, and a lot of people now I know have been talking about him at Chambers Bay. It could be a good match for him at the U.S. Open, and then even St. Andrews. He's a good links golf player. He's 2 top 10s in the British Open. That style of golf seems to suit him, so he's certainly going to figure to be in the mix in those 2 events.
Well, let's let the U.S. Open hype begin. Josh and Alan, thank you so much for your time and insight. Thank you all for joining us here on Tour Confidential on Golf.com. We'll see you right back here next week.